Greetings and welcome to a Warhammer Underworlds review today, where I go over the Exiled Dead. So before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment as what you think of this review, Warband and Warhammer Underworlds in general, I guess. But yeah, first things first, thanks goes to Games Workshop for giving this to me to review for free. And despite Nether Mage dropping in the same time, this is the last season for Harrowdeep. But as always, I aim to be impartial, constructively critical, and honest. And yeah, just a shout out, if you want to join my Discord, I've got a free Discord, and I've got my patrons as well. So if you want to support the channel more, you can become a patron and check that out. Oh yeah, today's going to be a review about the Exiled Dead, which, yeah, the last warband for Harrowdeep, because if you weren't aware, Warhammer Underworlds is now going to 6 monthly seasons, and a season is a core set, 2 warband expansions, and a rival deck. So make of that what you will. But we'll go into it, I'll go over the narrative, the models, and then the cards themselves. So let's get into it. So for the narrative, the Exiled Dead are led by a vampire called Talos, who is a mad scientist who experiments with this force dynamic, which is just lightning. So he's lost in the Harrowdeep, somehow surviving being drowned beneath the depth of the oceans. But he's a vampire, so I guess he can live through that. And just is a mad scientist beneath the depths of the Harrowdeep, making lightning zombies. But not all of them are lightning zombies, only some are. But that's pretty much the narrative. He just stalks the Harrowdeep, making lightning zombies. There we go. That's pretty much it. And he's also looking to discover every secret of Harrowdeep, but mainly making lightning zombies. So outside of that, you have 7 fighters, putting you at the largest scale, well, after Zarbag's Gits, or before Zarbag's Gits for warband size. And you're basically zombies with the weird vampire with a skin face kind of thing. Everything's light grey plastic, almost like the Lumineth warband. The only problem is the sculpts are a little boring, in my opinion. They're not that interesting. I like the leader's general shape. He's got really wide, thick hips, oddly. But the zombies are a bit uninspiring. I like the guy with the halberd and shield. Disappointing there's no big, hulky zombie. It's disappointing the zombie with a big right arm is your big damage dealer. Other than that, they're just odd. They don't feel like Warhammer miniatures. They feel like third-party miniatures. It's really hard to describe. I mean, I'm kind of glad they're not the root zombies, but it's just odd. It's different. It's not bad. It just doesn't feel like Games Workshop, if that makes sense. And yeah, apart from that, 7 fighters. So you're generally expecting horde control in a way. You're going to have a lot of bodies. You're going to give a lot of glory away. And they're zombies, so they're probably going to come back to life. If I had to pick a favorite, I think it is the leader. Just because of the staff, everything apart from the face. But I do like the guy with the big arm, because he's got a little stank hand. And you don't want to touch his little stank hand. So, I mean, the cool thing is on the artwork, you don't see on the miniatures, but he has an Auric arm. His right arm is an Auric arm grafted onto him, but he's the only miniature in the warband who has that kind of cool effect. I would have liked to see other races grafted onto different zombies, or like a Frankenstein boss zombie. But it is what it is. So now I'll go over the fighter cards and their general effects, starting with the leader. So you have Talos, the Exile, who is a leader with a level 2 wizard. He has the conductive keyword. He has movement free, 1 block, 4 wounds. His draining coil is range free, channel, 1 damage with stagger. He inspires when a friendly minion takes an enemy fighter out of action, and he has the dance dynamic. So this is an action. Pick move or attack. Each friendly conductive fighter can make 1 action of that kind. Then place up to 1 friendly out of action conductive minion in an adjacent hex 2 or more hexes from each enemy fighter, and give that minion 1 raise counter, and reactions cannot be used during this action. So effectively, he can make everyone who's a conductive minion move repeatedly, and the more powerful thing is you can bunch someone up with like 3 or 4 of these and just do like 4 attacks at once. And you can bring stuff back. So obviously continuing the meme of death warbands have to be too strong. But it's funny. He's fun. He's also a level 2 wizard. Can't tell he's a vampire, but I'll take their word for it. Then Dian Talos Inspired is a conductive. The only thing that changes is his he can now use his stave in melee. He learns how to use that. It was free smash, 2 damage with stagger, and his draining core against cleave. Other than that, nothing really else changes. He's a solid leader. You will keep him at the back. It's really weird. He only learns how to use his stave when inspired, but other than that, he's fine. Then you've got Bolt Unbound, who is a conductive minion. Move to 2 wounds, 1 block. He's got a Shocking Grasp, which is 2 fury, range 1, 1 damage cleave, and a Crackling Aura, which is range 1, 2 fury, 1 damage with arcs and scything. So arcs is +1 dice to this action for each conductive fighter adjacent to him, and it begins inspired. And it can fly because it has it's a beast, sorry. Yeah, it's the beast keyword. So Bolt Inspired he loses his arc thing and just goes to Shocking Grasp, which is cleave and overload, which gets +1 damage if the target is staggered. They really want to use to staggered. Then he has the Unbound special roll. So after a power step or an activation step, if this fighter has 1 or more raise counters, this fighter is uninspired. So when it gets brought back to life, uninspires. Then you've got Coil Unbound, who is a conductive minion. Move to block, same thing. Burrowed Limb, which is range 1, 2 fury, 2 damage, with the Crackling Arcs, which is the same as before, begins inspired. And then Coil Inspired is movement free, and Burrowed Limb is just the same, but with overload. So +1 damage if the target is staggered, and the same Unbound rule. Then you've got Ione, who is a conductive minion, has a Corroded Blade, which is range 1, 2 fury, 1 damage, and the same arc special rule. When she's inspired, she has Corroded Blade, which just gains overload. Then you've got Vlash, the Stampede. No, just Vlash. Just Vlash. He's not cool enough to be Vlash the Stampede. He's got Weighty Club, which is range 1, 2 fury, 1 damage with knockback, and then the Crackling Aura stuff. Then you've got Vlash Inspired, who gets overload on its Weighty Club, which is fine. Then you've got Prentice Markov, and I'm sure Prentice is a real word, who is movement free, 2 dodge, 3 wounds. He has range 1, 2 damage, 2 smash, 1 damage Grievous, and he inspires when a friendly Regulus's attack succeeds. He's a level 1 wizard also, because of his literally left little stag hand. He's got Puppeteer, which is an action that allows this fighter and a friendly Regulus can each make 1 action. Then place up to 1 friendly out of action Regulus in an empty X within 2 X's and give that Regulus a raise counter. Reactions cannot be used, so he just reses a different fighter. Markov Inspired goes to 2 smash, 2 damage on Grievous on the Bone Small, and Puppeteer remains unchanged. It's a nice little zombie stank hand wizard. Then you got Regulus Unbound, who is a minion, not conductive. He is movement free, 1 block, 3 wounds. He's got his Halberd, which is range 2, 2 fury, 2 damage, and he begins inspired. Regulus Inspired is 2 smash on his attack. And Unbound, after a power step or activation step, if this fire has 1 or more raise counter, yes, becomes uninspired. It's also a beast, although Markov isn't. So those are the fighters. As I said, you've only got, let's see how many, 4 conductive minions. So your main tactic is just moving those 4 and then having those 4 attack, so you can swarm someone quite well. They do start inspired because the devs realize movement 2 is terrible, but the only problem is their movement 2 uninspired. So if they get uninspired, they're really slow. But they make 2 wounds work, and you've got your little stank hand guy. What's his name? Prentice Markov. He's pretty neat. Don't know why they all just weren't conductive minions. I know some of them don't have lightning sticking out of them, but they're okay. I mean, the reason the conductive stuff ain't broken is because they're beasts, so you can't give them attack action upgrades. So you can't go like just give them all like 2 smash, 3 smash, 2 damage attacks, and just have them keep attacking. So they're kind of neat, and they reward swarming. it's very powerful, but also not too bad because everyone's mostly 2 wounds. So they're a neat little warband. They kind of play the game in reverse. So that's neat. So now I'll go over the cards you get in this expansion. So I'll go over the faction cards and then the universal cards. And I'll rate like my top picks. We'll start with the normal cards that are okay or bad, and then the normal cards. I mean the cards I think are the top picks. The only thing is I'll probably be a little bit briefer because, as you may be aware, I'm reviewing this and the Nether Maze core set together. So I have something like nearly 300 cards to go through. So forgive me if I'm not going to explain every card. So now I'll go into the objectives. Well, faction objectives. So first up we have Dynamic Chain. Score this in the end phase of each surviving friendly conductive fires adjacent to one or more friendly conductive fires, and they're in a single group. It only requires 4 together, but it's not amazing. It's okay. Forbidden Law, score this, you know, if it was 2 glory, Forbidden Law would be great. Otherwise, it's just okay. Force Dynamic it's difficult, right? If it's just 1 fighter that needs to have 1 or more move tokens, but if it's each one, then it's not great. But at the moment, I'm going to go with it requiring everyone to have more than 1. So at the moment, I don't think you can even score it properly. Meat Locker is just rough. You know, it's if you can get all your minions early in the game into the opponent's half, it's good. Otherwise, I wouldn't take it. Then you've got Mobile Resistors. Once again, it forces you to group up and be in specific parts of the board, which is difficult when you're trying to swarm and go for kills. So not exactly great. So next we go for my top picks. So you've got Appalling End. Score this immediately after a minion kills someone. It's pretty good. Your minion should be doing that. Alternating Strike. Score this immediately after activation if 2 or more friendly fighters each made 1 or more attack action. Should be really easy with your leader swarming people. Then you've got Direct Strike. Score this immediately after an attack that deals 3 or more damage. Once again, should be easy because you should be swarming. It's pretty good. Then you've got Dread Puppetry. Score this immediately after friendly Regulus is given a raise counter. It is specific because you need Regulus to die, but it's pretty good. Then you've got Stench of Dynamism. Stench of Dynamism. It's pretty good if you can focus on casting spells, because once again, you cast 3 or more spells and you get 2 glory. That's a pretty good trade-off in my opinion. Then you got Strict Tutor. Is if a friendly Markov cast 1 or more spells, which is pretty easy for 1 glory, especially if you're trying to stack it with the previous objective. Then you've got the Dead Unbound. Score this in the end phase if 1 or more surviving friendly conductive minions are uninspired. So rewards you for playing the game, which is really good in this kind of 7 fighter kill team, not kill team, warbands. Pretty good selection of faction objectives. So now we have the faction Gambits. So starting with Corpse-like Globe, which is a spell. It just, if you choose one, it's cast on a focus. Choose 1 enemy fighter adjacent to 1 or more friendly fighters. You can reroll the dice. It's okay, but I'd rather just go for static dice buff cards. Then you've got Dance of Dauntelos, which is good. You know, if you cast it, you can either do a free move or free attack with all conductive inspired fighters. The only problem, they have to be inspired, and it is 2 channel to cast, which isn't really reliable with this warband. You've got Scorching Surge, +1 damage for your first range 1 attack from a conductive minion. And then if you roll a crit, you deal 1 damage to yourself. They're just better sources of extra damage. Then Sudden Lurch, it's just restricted to Markov and pushing. So Markov needs to be alive, and then you need Register Alive to work from it. It's just too specific to use reliably. For the Gambit top picks, we have Dynamic Cage. Choose 1 enemy fighter adjacent to 2 or more friendly conductive fighters to deal 1 damage. Pretty solid, you should be doing that. Necrotic Curse is a single channel spell, and it deals 1 damage to the chosen fighter and staggers and then deals 1 damage to the caster. You do take 1 damage, but you're dealing 1 damage and getting a nice effect from that. You've got Reassert Control, which is choose 1 inspired friendly minion, heal them, and then remove their raise counters, so it's a heal and an inspire. Then you've got Sparking Shuffle, choose 2 friendly conductive minions and push them up to 2 hexes, nice push. Then you've got Terrible Dynamism. Choose 2 friendly conductive minions that are out of action and place them in a hex adjacent to your leader and give each raise counter. Really good resurrection cards. So once again, a nice selection of Gambit cards. Oh, and I've got Channeled Dynamism. It's a Gambit spell, cast on a single focus, makes everyone move 4. It's okay. Persistent until the end of the phase, but play hunting season and stuff instead. You've got basic, well, not hunting season, you've just got better cards in Diachasm. So when Diachasm stuff rotates, you put this in. So now we have the faction upgrades. So you have Convert Zeal. It's okay, but if it wasn't restricted to Markov and was instead restricted to minions, it'd be much better. Dynamic Enhancer is +1 damage to range 1 attacks other than Scythings, but it's restricted to 2 very specific fighters, which I don't rate. Then you've got Dynamic Stabilizer. Reduces damage by 1, but all your minions have 2 wounds, and it's restricted to 2 guys. It's just not worth it. Then you've got Prison of Grief, which is a spell action. Stagger someone as an action. It's okay, but not something I'd really rate. Then you've got Spark of Life. It's an illusion upgrade that gives +1 move and defense to a minion. I, once again, wouldn't really rate that. Then you have Unfaltering Guard. When an enemy fighter makes attack action, they can only target Regulus. It's restricted to Regulus. Just too specific, not great. Now we have the faction upgrades top picks. So starting off, we have Crackling Field. So after a range 1 or 2 attack action that attacks this, deal 1 damage to the attacker, then break this fighter. It can go on any conductive, so that's pretty cool. Then you've got Powered Command. It's restricted to your leader, but after an attack action takes out a friendly conductive minion, you place that in a hex adjacent to attacker, give that fighter a raise counter, then break this card. So it's nice instant resurrection. Dynamic Bolt is nice on your leader because it's just a 2 damage spell that they can use immediately. Really good. Then you've got Unfailing Fortitude, which is +1 wounds on a minion. It's decent, putting on any minion as well, so not just conductive, so really solid. So now we go into the universal cards. You've got like a lot, 28, something like that. So I'll start off with the universal objectives. So first we have Cryptic Clues. Score this in end phase if 2 or more surviving friendly fighters are out of action, and score this if there are 2 or more surviving friendly fighters, and each of those fighters is on a feature token or cover hex or a lethal hex. So the only thing, it's good with elite warbands, but it's okay. Not really that good considering all your surviving friendly fighters, and there have to be 2 or more. No nice things is score this in end phase if there are 1 or more upgrade cards in one of your opponent's discard piles, which is actually more difficult than it sounds, and is also a destruction card. So you may not even end up scoring this round 1. It's okay, but not great. You got Dead Simple, which is a death card. Score this immediately after for any attack action that takes out if the attacker had no upgrades. Weird, like it's very matchup specific, and I wouldn't really rate it as a surge. You've got Fate Averted, which is a duel you score in the 3rd end phase if 1 or more friendly fighters are vulnerable and they're in enemy territory. For 2 glory as a 3rd end phase, just don't take it. Then you got Inevitable End, the Surge and Duel. If you take out an out of action and you take an enemy fighter out of action and you contained only crits or successes or a mix, and the damage characteristic was equal to or greater than that target's wound characteristic for only 1 glory. For all of that, that should have been 2. Change of priority. Score this immediately after your Gambit, which shows 1 or more friendly fighter had 2 or more illusion upgrades. It's okay if you're playing illusions, but otherwise it's okay. Blessed Fate is a 3rd end phase that is only worth 2 glory, so no matter what, don't run it. Then you've got Questionable Loyalty. Score this in the end phase. It's also a Chaos card. The last one was an Order card. If your 1 or more companions are within 3 hexes of each other, or you've got surviving slash fire or leader out, it's not good. It's just not good. And then for the top picks with the universal objectives, you have Ever Downwards. It's a surge and hybrid. Score this immediately after a power step in which you delved 3 or more times, or you delved 1 or more times and one of the feature tokens you delved was in a hex occupied by your leader. So this is super easy. You basically just charge your leader onto a hex or move your leader onto a hex in enemy territory and then flip it, or you have 3 feature tokens in your board and then just delve them. It's very good, but questionable how it got through balance. Then you've got Secrets Uncovered. It's a hybrid. Score in the end phase if there are no cover hexes in enemy territory, or there is a fighter in each cover hex in enemy territory. For 1 glory, it's not too bad. You can kind of game this round 1, and it sucks if your opponent puts a cover hex in their territory, but it is what it is. Pretty solid overall, and it's one of the few good objectives here. So now we have the Universal Gambit, starting with Abasoft's Eruption. He's just had a massive explosion. Gambit spell, cast on a focus, deal 1 damage to each fire on a feature token that is not in enemy territory. It's okay if you want to damage yourself. I can see some play, but it's requiring your opponent to be either on feature tokens in no man's land or your territory, so I wouldn't really rate it. Then you've got a Waypoint Volt's Mysterism, +1 wizard level to each wizard. But then Wizard suffers a backlash if their casting roll contains one or more crits. And if they suffer backlash, they take one additional point of damage. So because of all that downside, I don't think it's that great. You know, even Curse Breakers don't want to take 2 damage from a backlash. So it's okay. It's nice to see. You got Leech Strength. It's okay as well. Once again, you choose one friendly fighter and one enemy fighter. In the next, you choose one of their range 1 attack actions and take their damage for your next attack action. So if it wasn't limited to range 1 attacks, I'd be more for it. But it's limited to range 1 and you have to be adjacent. It's okay. Just there are a lot of fighters who don't have range 1 attack actions, and you may just not be taking something that's better than what you're attacking with anyway. Then you've got Phantom Theft. Play this after an enemy fighter is given an illusion upgrade. That play either spends a glory or breaks their thing. It's not worth it. Then you've got Pierce to Darkness. If you're attacking someone in a cover hex or edge hex, you have Cleave. It's okay. Then you've got a Grand Alliance Order card that heals if they had, or heals more if they have illusion cards. Just run Healing Potion. Then you've got Skittering Prize, which is for destruction teams only. It's effectively Scatter 2. It's a Restless Prize, but instead of Push 2, you Scatter 2. It's okay. Maybe Gits will use this. But other than that, I don't think it's that great. I mean, it's fine. It's very balanced. It's probably what Restless Prize should have been, but, you know, it's okay. Then you've got Death Dews, which is a death card. And it's anti-illusions. And even then, it's not great anti-illusion card. So if you want it, it's okay. I wouldn't personally run it. Then you've got Cursed Shadows, which is a Chaos card. Flip each feature token that is not an objective token. And then you deal 1 damage to each fighter on an even number token revealed in this way. Then you flip them if they were revealed this way. So you're flipping cover hexes into objectives and then doing damage and flipping them back down. It's okay, just not that great. Then for the top picks for Gambits, Universal Gambits, you have Dark Epiphany, which is draw and power card for each friendly fighter in the cover hex, then discard that many power cards. You may be going, I'm drawing and discarding. But if you're on like 5 cover hexes, you've just drawn 5 cards and discard 5 cards. It's a great way to mill your deck, even if you don't want to lose all those cards. I think it's pretty good, especially if you're just drawing 3 cards or even 2. Then you've got Ayara's Summon, which is a spell cast on a single channel. If cast, choose 1 fighter within 3 hexes of the caster and push it 1 hex towards you. It's a nice distraction, pretty solid. So now we go on to the universal upgrades. So starting off with Shadow Coil, it's a bound spell, can't give to Khorne fighters. It's cast on a focused. Pick 1 enemy fighter within 3, deal 1 damage, then roll 1 dice. On a smash, you give them a move token. It's okay, not that bad. Then you've got Pure Number Pendulum. This fires to line of sight to each fight in a cover hex and or edge hex. So it's just if you're really good at shooting or you want to cast long range. Illusory Strength, which just gives you Grievous if you're range 1. If it wasn't just range 1, it'd be fine. I'm not sure why it's in range 1 and 2. Improbable Mace is 1 dice, 2 smash, range 1, knockback 1, plus 2 dice if you're a minion. There are better attack actions. Blazing Icon can't be given to a beast, but makes you a priest. And enemy fighters can't provide support. It's okay. Illusory Courage can only be given to a vulnerable fighter. You cannot be... this fighter is inspired. It's an order card, but once again, better card upgrades out there. Heave Ho. Range 1 and 2 attack actions have knockback. It's only for destruction. If you drive back someone 2 or more hexes, deal 1 damage. It's not bad. It's okay. Then you've got a death upgrade, False Vigor, which is an illusion. Can only be given to a fighter with 3 wounds or less as their characteristic. They get +1 dice to their attack and move. It's okay. Killing Frenzy is a chaos card. Range 1 and 2 attack actions have Grievous. If the target has 1 or more wound counters. If it didn't have that, it'd be slightly better, but otherwise, they're better sources of +1 damage. Then for the upgrades for the Universal cards top picks, we have Living Missile. So when making a range 1 attack action as part of a charge action, you get +1 damage, Grievous, and knockback 1. But you take 1 damage when you deal a charge action, but it's great on beasts because it's restricted to beasts. So you can do some crazy, silly things with this. Then you've got Vortex Staff, which swaps your casting symbols. So if you're casting... For your casting rolls, channels are focuses and focuses are channels. And if you contain 2 or more crits, your spell fails and suffers backlash as normal. So it's really nice for getting those. I would have loved this during Night Vault for making focus spells easier to cast. But either way, it's not bad. Pretty cool. So that's pretty much it for the universal cards. For the Warband as a whole, it's pretty neat. I can see it's got some tricks, mainly with the conductive minions, like swarming them up and doing like, you know, that scene in Shaun of the Dead where they're hitting someone everywhere with the snooker pool. That's basically what you're planning to do every game. So they're pretty neat, little bit of fun, pretty balanced. They're all beasts. Still iffy that they can all repeatedly move and then repeatedly attack, but your opponent kind of has to play into that. So they've got some neat resurrection. They kind of get past having movement too. I like how they resurrect. It's pretty neat. Overall, it's a really interesting warband. It's got some really nice faction cards, especially with the objectives. So you can see, what do you call it? Rival decks are starting to get better. Because like the funny thing is, I know no one tests rival decks. That was what me and my team did. So I think they're testing, like as in just testing how rival decks operate on their own. So it's interesting to see that there is some improvement in the rival decks. The universal cards are pretty shocking, to be honest. Like, a lot of them aren't even usable. Unfortunately, you're going to have to buy this for if you're a competitive player for stuff like Ever Downwards, the delving stuff, like, and even the draw tech. Probably you need this. I would say like the delve, like the keep digging one is really good for an easy surge. That's oddly going to get people onto the objectives, not to hold them, but just to delve them to score 1 glory. It's really odd. Yeah, so overall, I think the warband's pretty cool. It's the universal cards that are severely disappointing. So for like pros and cons, the zombie warband, I think mechanically it's really cool. You can tell it's a death warband because it's got very strong mechanics and faction cards. It's pretty fun. As I said, you can have a lot of fun with the conductive stuff, and I can see what you can do. You've kind of got the team in 2 parts. You've got the leader and the conductive minions. Then you've got your little stank hand minion and Regulus, the halberd guy. It's okay. It's pretty neat. And once again, you've got a good selection of faction cards. So it'd be quite good in Rivals and even outside of Rivals format. I think it'd be really neat. And I can appreciate the aesthetic. For the warband cons, it's a lot like love or hate look, and I don't think it's a bad design. As I've said before, it just doesn't look like a Games Workshop design. It feels like I'm looking at a third-party miniature design. So especially the leader, I know he's supposed to be a vampire, but he doesn't look like a vampire. He just really has really thick hips. But yeah, I mean that's the main downside. And the universal cards. And I'm not saying you need to have, like, what's annoying is you have really bad universal cards and then like 1 or 2 must-have universal cards for like objectives, gambits, and upgrades. I would have preferred them just to be like okay side grades instead of just mostly bad cards, because you have the thing, if you didn't want to buy the warband, you could have just skipped it, but now you're like, if you're playing competitively, you're like, I have to buy this. So that's the main downside. Would I recommend this? I mean, yeah, I think it's pretty fun as a zombie warband. If like I didn't get this for free, I might have picked it up. Like, you could probably get away with like converting the zombie, the leader, because he has hair in the artwork and he doesn't really have hair on the miniature. He just has his weird skin face. But you know, you can convert the leader up a bit. It's fine. It's just a fun warband. I think it'd be pretty neat in Rivals. Looks like it'll be pretty fun. As I said, your main goal is like swarming. You can do some hold objective stuff, but your main goal is just aggro swarm, which is not bad. It's just kind of disappointing. Every warband is just turning into aggro. Partly because it's the easiest one to balance, I guess. But they're pretty neat. Pretty fun to play, and you can just go zap. But that's pretty much it for me. If you want to get this warband, you can buy it directly from Games Workshop, or you can use my affiliate link down in the episode description below at Element Games, which will net you like a 15 to 25% discount at no additional cost. And yeah, just if you enjoyed the video, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of the warband and what you think of it as a whole. And as I said, I also have a Discord if you want to check it out. And I have a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. So I'll list off my Patrons now. But for my veterans of the crits, I have Confucius. I also have Michael. I don't want to ruin your last name. then another Michael called Tarun. And then I also have my veterans. Oh, and then I also got Theodore. Sorry, Theodore. And then my veterans of the crits, which are Confucius and Samja. So yeah, thanks for all your support. Really appreciate it. I mean, you know, like liking and subscribing is the main support. But if you want to give me a little bit more, it helps me reinvest back into the channel and give you guys better content. So thank you. I really appreciate it. But that's pretty much it. I think they're fine. I know it's going to probably upset a lot of the hardcore Warhammer Underworlds fans. Are like, stop talking about the game. You're killing it, John. Your lack of enthusiasm is killing the game. But I think it's fine. I think this is a neat warband. I know a lot more people are against it. And I was actually really cool, like really hyped when I saw this guy. Because I was like, oh yeah, there's going to be a Frankenstein big zombie. But there wasn't. So it's not a bad warband. It's pretty good. It's just visually a little boring, I would say. But I'll have a battle report on them, so we'll see how they do. I haven't filmed that yet because scheduling. But that's pretty much it. Until next time, no matter what you care about the force dynamic in the underworlds, you may electrocute yourself in the water, but what you can always do and should do instead of trying to electrocute yourself in the water is roll a crit.